Good. So I'm going to try to do that. The Gemara after the Shachianu and Hatova Hametiv Gemara, it spoke about reciting a bracha on bad that good will come out of it, or on good that bad will or might come out of it. And we sort of struggled to try to explain, if there's good that bad might come out of it. That's not such a hard thing to explain, because what's happening to you is good, and maybe bad things, maybe something bad will come out of it. Don't worry, trust in Hashem. But the other way, something bad happened, and you're supposed to accept it b'simcha. You're supposed to, as we learned, you're right. You're supposed to kashem shemavarchen al hatoiv kach mavarchen al harad. The same way, that you accept it b'simcha, just like you're excited to hear good news. You should feel the same way for bad news, because Hashem means the best for you, and whatever is happening is really good. You just don't see it. So the question was, the Gemara is saying you should say the bracha for the bad, because right now it's actually bad. And our question was, if you have so much trust and faith that this bad thing is really something good for you, so why should you say the bracha for the bad? Either don't say anything or say the bracha for the good. And the simple understanding of the Gemara was, based on the Mishnah, that you have to be practical. Whatever it is, if it's bad, it's bad. And don't think about what's going to happen later. Think about what's happening now. But we still struggled and said, well, but the fact is that you're even besimcha, you're even happy about whatever's happening. So how could you not feel, either say the bracha for good, because you really are trusting Hashem. You're confident that something good is happening from this. In other words, your field overflowed was filled with water, and it ruined the crops. But that next year's crop is going to be 10 times, going to be worth so much more. Something good is coming out. You're confident, even though there's no guarantees. But you feel confident that it's good. Hashem did this for that. It's going to be something good is going to come out of this, and you're going to have the best fruits next year. Why can't you say the bracha of Hatov HaMeitiv if that's the way a person is? So we sort of struggled to try to explain, we explained the bracha Dayon HaEmes doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. It just means that we're trusting Hashem. So the bracha is not really a contradiction to the fact that you're confident that something good is coming out of it. But the fact that the good thing didn't yet come out, you're confident it'll come out, but it didn't yet come out. So maybe you can't say the bracha for the good because it didn't yet come out. But at least, but the bracha Dayan HaEmes is not really a bracha that it's bad. It's just saying, I trust Hashem. So it sort of like fits along the same lines as your confidence that something good is coming out. So again, we struggled a little, but that was basically the discussion on Friday. Yes, Ben.
I wanted to say, if you're going to be blessing on something that's going to be in the future, you're going to miss the blessing of what just occurred. You do have to bless on whatever just occurred.
So if you are thankful to Hashem because something good is coming out of this,
that's something else. But first of all, whatever happened, you have to bless on it first. Otherwise, you miss that point.
Right.
And you're skipping it already to the next act.
Well, you could argue and say that this is what happened. I mean, I'm thanking Hashem for what happened. I'm believing that there's going to be that I'm going to benefit from it. I'll give you an example.
Then you have to bless twice. Bless on what happened,
uh-huh,
and bless on what you believe is going to happen.
Okay. An example would be like you have a insurance claim now because let's say your roof caved in,
yeah,
from the hurricane. So many people do well on these type of claims. It's a pretty good deal. You know what I mean? If you have insurance, you're in a hurricane area, the hurricane hit, and your roof caved in, and the fact is the insurance company is gonna pay an arm and a leg for your new roof, for all the damage. You're gonna redo your walls, redo your floor.
Until the insurance is gonna pay, you're gonna suffer. So
Okay.
First of all, that's what occurred right now. I don't know. That's the way I look at it.
But not necessarily. First of all, if you just put up a whatchamacallit, some type of a tarp over your roof, so you're pretty much set now until the mold kicks in, and you did suffer a little, true, but once the insurance company pays, you generally do very well, at least the way it works here in Florida. I don't know how it works in other places. So the question is, you stay the you're going to get new floors. You're going to be able to put in a new kitchen. You'll probably get granite this time instead of the Formica. You're going to be able to redo all your cabinets that were getting broken and things. So it would seem like, maybe you could say the bracha, Toiva HaMeitiv. You don't have to be such a big trusting person of faith for this. This is pretty practical stuff in Florida.
Yes, but you're also skipping the requirement of blessing on the bad as on the good.
Right. Okay. I hear you. Okay, I hear. Yes, Robert.
My thinking does not correlate with Ben's. So for discussion's sake, let me tell you what my thinking is in saying the bracha for the good. And saying the bracha for the good in the future, one is doing that knowing that what happened just then was not necessarily good, but you're asking in the future for a good experience. So to me, by doing that, is admitting that you're not blessing something that was bad, but you're thinking towards the future. And it's understood that by making that bracha, that the present occurrence was not a good thing.
So you understand very clearly for such a case, you should say the bracha for the bad, dayan ha'emes, now. And when you get the insurance claim, then you would say the hatoiva hameitiv.
That's what I believe, yeah.
Well, I don't necessarily think that you should do the one for the bad, because what our blessings are, we're an optimistic people,
right?
And optimistic in our blessings. And so instead of dwelling on the negative, if I understand correctly, we want to advance to the future. So if the current occurrence was not a good one, we are asking for a future one, with not necessarily doing a blessing on a negative occurrence. That's my thinking.
Right. So in other words, based on our faith and confidence that only good things are going to happen and this is going to be something good, it does seem hard to explain this Gemara that you're going to say the bracha, dayan ha'emes, for this occurrence, which you're pretty confident is going to be actually something good is going to come out of it.
Eventually, yeah, because we're optimistic.
We're optimistic
that Hashem will provide for us. Well, you're shaking your head no, Isaac. What do you?
Listen, Isaac doesn't have to say no.
At the moment,
one second,
tough.
Isaac, you don't have to say
later,
no.
I'm going to give a very heartfelt one and say I always knew it was going to, but you don't make brachas in advance.
Right.
You got to take the bad the same way as you take the good. You can have the confidence that it's all going to be good. And in the meantime, you say, "Oh, that hurts." And that's it.
Right. The thing is, we know that this is incorrect, Isaac, because the Gemara says that there is a bracha for the bad, even though good is going to come out of it. And there's a bracha for the good, even though bad is going to come out of it. So we know what the correct thing is. We're trying to explain it. So
you're making it. Yeah,
I hear.
Rabbi.
So Isaac's explanation, in other words, to shake your head no, we know that's shaking your head. We know we know that this is the incorrect. We're just trying to figure out why. So Isaac explains that it has to do with the fact that you're saying a bracha for the future and it didn't happen yet. which is sort of how we sort of reconciled it. And we also emphasized that Dayan HaEmes is not really bad. We just call it a bracha for the bad, but it doesn't really mean bad. It means that we
don't understand it.
True judge. It means
we don't understand it, but we have faith.
We do have faith that something good is going to come out. It's just that you don't say the bracha for the good yet, because it didn't really happen yet. Which, there definitely is room to think about this, because someone who has so much faith and is so sure that it's something that this is going to be so good, we're gonna redo our whole house from this insurance claim. I mean, when you start thinking about that, and you're ready to make a kiddush and shul because the claim. I mean, I'll give you an example. We have some insurance public adjusters in our shul here. Now, once this hurricane came,
they were counting the money.
This hurricane that just came, was right before Rosh Hashanah, or right before Sukkot. Anyway, all I can tell you is, when it came to bidding for the aliyahs and for the honors on Yom Kippur and on Sukkot, these guys are going strong. They were so confident that they are going to be making a killing on this hurricane, that they were donating 18,000 for this and 25,000 for that. They were bidding big money, because they were so sure that there's big money coming in this year, because they just had the hurricane. And they already are starting to file. They didn't get the money yet, but they're already starting to file claims, and they're very confident, trusting Hashem. Not that they're not confident in their own ability. They're confident that Hashem is going to be providing based on the experiences in the past, based on their trust in Hashem, and they're very confident that it's going to be a real good year based on once the hurricane hit. So in other words, they're not really waiting for the blessing. They see the hurricane as a blessing, and so for them, you may ask, could they say Hatov HaMeitiv, because they see it? And the answer is no, they can't, because it didn't happen, even though inside they're so confident that the Eibush is going to be giving them, a lot of success. But you don't say the bracha beforehand. I guess it also has to do with you're sort of making an ayin hara to say the bracha beforehand. Maybe it could be like putting on an evil eye, that you're so confident. It didn't happen yet.
When people around you are suffering and collapsing, nobody wants to hear you make a Hatov HaMeitiv out loud. That's all. It may not be good for them. You don't sit there giving such a big bracha about the big bracha that's coming.
Listen, Isaac, the bracha Hatov HaMeitiv is said even when a relative passes away. So
yes, if you have an inheritance,
don't minimize.
I'm
just saying.
Right, I understand.
There are cases where it is said even when people are suffering.
Rabbi, but you also say a Dayan HaEmes then.
Okay, but you did say Hatov HaMeitiv. And
I think
the hurricane also.
The first.
Rabbi.
1 second, Moshe. Let's see what Robert wants to say. Robert.
I guess an extension of what my argument is, when we say there is the blessing on the negative, are we thanking or are we acknowledging that it happened? And I think that's a subtle but yet profound part of the thinking. We're thanking that something terrible happened to us, or we're acknowledging it and then do the blessing for the future, for something good.
Okay, that's an interesting distinction. Yeah, distinction between the two. Yeah. Okay, yeah. All right, Moshe, you wanted to say something.
I was saying it's like the stock market. You're waiting for that ticker to reach that certain point, or the graph, to reach a certain point, and then it's you don't say the bracha before. It's not. It's almost that kind of excitement. You know what I'm saying? You're gonna say a bracha, and then it doesn't happen. It's right near there, but you don't. You say gamzula tov if it doesn't happen. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Gotcha. Yes, Ben.
So anyhow, I started it. I'm going to add to it. I think that when you bless on the bed, you're also blessing that it wasn't worse than it was.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And hopefully that's all the punishment you deserve.
Right.
And nothing
Right.
worse happened and will happen, So,
Right.
but you have to bless on it. Yeah.
Right. Right. Well, there is such a concept that that the idea of thanking Hashem for the bad is that, this is what Hashem is atoning for my sins. I'm so thrilled that I'm now going to have like a clean slate, like Ben is saying, like, this is all it is. And now, hopefully it's over.
It's a
kapara,
Yeah.
as they say. Yes. Let's see, who did someone else want to say something? David. Yeah.
Without getting into the details, in Hasidus, it says that there are things that are bad that are actually a higher form, so they come out as bad rather than good. So my question is, if that's the case, why do we wish each other a blessing for you should be blessed with good and revealed good? You should, based on what I just said, you should be saying not a blessing for revealed good. It should be maybe a blessing for hidden good, because it's a higher level and it comes out as bad. Did I make myself clear?
Yeah. So what do you think the answer is?
I don't know. I'll throw it out for others' opinion.
For discussion.
You must have some insight into that, David. I'm sure it's not the first time you've thought about this, probably. But Isaac, is that you wanting to answer this? Is that, or just see your fingers?
No. I'm sorry. I'm making noise.
Okay. So it would seem obvious that the ultimate good is a good that is very high and is revealed. In other words, that's what we're really davening for. So when you give a bracha to someone, you want a high level of good that's revealed good that the person will be able to receive. And that's the ultimate bracha, and that's why you give a bracha. Of course, you want them to have revealed good. We don't want people to have hidden good. We want people to have revealed good. Of course, it should come from a high level, but it should be revealed. And
Rabbi?
That's the ultimate goal. Yes, Moshe.
So our blessings should be revealed, but when these kinds of brachas are carried out, it's for not just an individual necessarily, it's for the overall kahal in general. It's for a larger group of people, not just for a single person. I mean, in that case, isn't that usually the case? It would be more for an individual than for a group. I mean, more for a group than an individual to have have it work.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not really sure about that. Okay, so we have the Gemara that we did on Friday that with the case of blessing Hashem for bad, even though good is going to come out of it. That was a case where the Gemara explained the example for it was where a person's field filled up with water. It was a flood, and it ruined the either the produce, the grain, or it ruined the newly plowed ground. So whatever it was, it is something bad. But even though something good will come out or may come out of it, because the land is going to be fertilized and have it's going to be good for the land for the future. So therefore the Gemara says that that now the fact is, now that it's bad, it causes that you do not say the bracha for the ultimate good because it didn't happen yet. Instead, you say the bracha for the dayon ha'emes bracha, because the fact is this is negative. I mean, you did lose your crop for this year. Now, the Gemara then gave an example the opposite way, that if something good happens, but something bad may come out of it. For example, you found an object that was lost. You found it. You found something, and in that country where you live, the government finds out that you found something. They take it to the government. They take it, and they might even give you a penalty. And so therefore, on the one hand, you found something, so you won something that you didn't have to work for, and nevertheless, something bad may come out of it. So, because if the king finds out about it, they're gonna take it from you. Nevertheless, now it's good, and therefore, because now it's good, you say the bracha teva meitiv now. Chas v'shalom, they find out about it, and you get into trouble, then you'll have to deal with it then. But in the meantime, this is something good, and there's always issues that could come up, and we have to trust in Hashem that things are good, and we have to thank Hashem for the good things that happen, even though something bad might come out. In other words, everything works this way. There's no guarantees in life. You won a lot of money, but you don't know if something might get stolen from you. You just bought yourself anything could be that way. You have a new car, who knows? Maybe it's going to get in an accident or something. Who knows what could happen? And so the fact is, now it's something good. We are thankful to Hashem, and at the same time, there's also a concept, of course, of trusting Hashem, that everything, having more faith and trust that everything will be good. Then the Gemara spoke about a case of pregnancy, and this was also very interesting, that the Gemara says that a person can't really daven for the child to be a male, because it is what it is. The child is what it is. The Gemara asks a contradiction. Well, we have stories, and we have a story in the Torah about Leah davening that her child should be a girl. So we do find a precedent of doing this. And our Mishnah said that it's considered a prayer in vain to daven that your child should be a male. What happens if it's a female now? So you're davening that it should be a male. I mean, it's not. You're davening too late. You're coming too late. So the Gemara answers that you really aren't supposed to daven for child to be a certain gender, because it really is too late. But there are cases of miracles where Hashem made a major miracle. He changed the whole setup of the way the world works. And one of the commentaries mentions that this is for people who are tzadikei yesod olam, the like righteous of the righteous, the holiest of the holy. They are allowed to daven for the change in they could daven for a major change in the world. But regular people who are not in such a league, we can daven for miracles and things, but not to break the entire realm of creation. And so that's the first answer. Then the Gemara mentions that it could be that the Gemara says that you could say that the story of Leah happened within the first 40 days. Within the first 40 days, the child's gender is not set yet, and you could daven either way. And our Mishnahs, where it says you can't daven, it's a prayer in vain, is talking about after the 40 days. That's when it's a prayer in vain. So the Gemara says, but that doesn't seem to fit, because there is another Gemara where it says that if the man is Mazriat Tchila, he gives seed first, then the child will be a female. If the wife gives the seed first, she will cause that the child will be a male. So it seems like it's pretty much set based on the relations that they had, who gave the seed first, which could mean possibly means who had the first orgasm, would cause the child to be a certain gender. And therefore, a prayer, it seems like the child is already decided on what gender it's going to be from then. And therefore, prayer should be too late once they had relations, because it's already set. And the Gemara answers that would only be if one of them gave seed before the other. But if they both gave seed at the same time, which could mean if they both felt orgasm at the same time, so there it would work that the gender of the child is not set until 40 days, and their prayer would be would work. Person could daven until 40 days that they want the child to be a male or to be a female, that would be possible within the first 40 days. So that's brought in halacha that a person could daven until the first 40 days if they want specifically a certain gender. But because and the reason for that is that it's possible that they both gave seed at the same time, and therefore
it's undetermined until the 40th
therefore it's
day.
undetermined, right? Okay. Now, where is this in Shulchan Aruch? Chapter 230. In chapter 230, it says that if a person's wife is pregnant after 40 days and he says, I want the child to be a male, I pray that it be a male, this is considered a tefillah shav. It's a prayer in vain. But within the 40 days, the Mishnah Berurah adds, then prayer helps. And after the 40 days, you could pray to Hashem that the child is healthy and that he will be righteous. He'll be involved in mitzvahs and ma'asim tovim, good deeds, he'll have good traits. But after 40 days, it's a little late to daven for the child to be either a male or to daven for the gender. But the prayer, unless a person is a very righteous individual like Leah, who could do that, change possibly change the entire realm of the entire way the world works. Okay, so that's basically the conclusion of the Gemara from Friday, and there is just let's see. Let me mute everyone here. Okay, there is let's see. We just skipped out one or two things. One of them was that there was a whole brisa here that mentioned that in the first 3 days after relations, the person should daven that the seed will be viable, and from 3 to 40 days he could daven for the gender or for it to be a male or the opposite, and from 40 days to 3 months he should daven for that it shouldn't be a sandal, which we translated as some type of a crushed and not exactly healthy, or and from 3 months to 6 months, he could daven that it shouldn't be a miscarriage. From 6 months to 9 months, should daven that the child should come out b'shalom, peacefully, and I guess that includes both the mother and the child should be healthy. Okay, so that's basically the Gemara from Friday, and now we're on page Samach Amud Aleph, page 60a.
Rabbi, I had a question.
Yeah.
When we're saying that they both that they emit seed one before the other, so we're translating that as we're saying that that's an orgasm. So I'm just wondering if
I'm not sure. That's
yeah.
We gave such an option.
Right. So I'm just wondering if the commentaries, Rashi or the other commentaries, explain what their opinion is of what that means.
I don't believe so. I don't believe, at least Rashi here doesn't have any, doesn't say anything.
Also, I never realized, my mother always told me that the guy in the shoe store, when I came in there to get new shoes as a child, used to look down at my feet and go, the flounders are here. I had such flat feet. Now I heard another time about something being compared to a fish of some kind.
Oh, interesting. So a flounder might be the sandal? That's very interesting. Is that like a very...
No, I don't know if it is. I'm just saying he talked about my feet, not about the way I looked in the womb. But right. I'm just
wondering if that that would be like possibly the example when it mentions sandal. Okay, interesting. The truth is, I have a book about all kosher fish. I should see if it has like Hebrew names and I wonder if he translates sandal. He really did research for the last 50 years on like going through each animal and each bird and each fish. It's an unbelievable book. A few books. One is on birds, one's on fish. I have to take a look if he has a good translation of what the sandal fish is. But I think David mentioned that the Steinsaltz had some translation that there maybe is a sandal fish or something.
Yeah, it said a sandal fish.
There is a sandal fish also, so maybe that's it. I guess that would be the obvious one. Okay.
I told you last time about Moshe Rabbeinu's fish.
Yeah, I forgot. What did you say? That
it looked like a pita, it was round and flat.
Yeah. But that's just what you called it, Moshe Rabbeinu's fish.
Right.
So we can't find. I can't go to the store and ask them for it.
Yeah, I don't know what the name was.
Yeah. Unless you own the fish store, I can't go to the store and ask for it.
I never seen it since.
It
was in the early years of Israel, like 49, 50.
Interesting. Okay. So the next Gemara is Hayabah Baderech. Where are we up to here? We are on let's see, we're about halfway down the page, 60a. We must be about 18 lines from the wide lines. Maybe 15 lines, 15th wide line. Hayabah Baderech. If a person was coming on the way and he heard noise in the city and he wants to daven that noise should not be from his house. Again, that's the Mishnah, and the Mishnah said that is a prayer in vain. Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis learned, Ma'aseh b'Hillel Zaken, story with Hillel. Shehayabah Baderech, he was coming on the way to his house, V'shama, and he heard Koil Tzavacha Ba'ir. He heard the sound of screaming in the city. Amar, he said, Muftach ani she'ein zeh b'seich beisi. I am confident that this is not from my house. V'yolav hakosav aimer, and on that the pasuk says, Mishmua ra'a lo yira, from a bad news I am not afraid. From bad
Noun.
What?
I don't think it's news. It's
what do you say?
Isn't it? It's just sound, not news. You don't know what it is. You hear some noise.
Okay, if you want it, okay, fine.
I don't know.
Shmua ra. Well, a shmua is like a.
You heard something bad.
Hearing, but a shmua ra from a bad hearing. Okay. Lo yira, should not be afraid. Nachain liboy batuach b'Hashem. The confident heart is trusting in Hashem. Yes.
We learned before about somebody seeing smoke and saying, "Oh, I hope it's not my house burning."
That's this case. It wasn't exactly smoke. It was he heard screaming or something.
We studied it weeks ago or a couple months ago. Yeah.
So the case in the Mishnah, the
maybe it's the same case, but they mentioned it a while ago. 54a.
Oh, one second. The Mishnah says that he hears screaming. He should say, he says, Shalai Tehei B'Seich Beisi. So it's a Tefillah Shav. Yeah. So, okay, I don't remember exactly with the fire, but in any event, maybe that was just an example or something. But the Gemara here gives the case where Hillel was coming on the way, traveling, and he hears these sounds. He says, I'm confident that's not my house. What is the meaning of this story? So the Gemara was initially, the Gemara is explaining the Mishnah. The Mishnah says you can't daven that it shouldn't be my house because that's considered a prayer in vain. But you can still be confident that it's not your house. You could be confident because you trust fully in Hashem. In other words, confidence is fine. But to pray that Hashem should switch it and go retroactively and change it from being it was your house, and now Hashem says, oh, you davened, I'm going to switch it from the fact that it already was your house. It's a little late. Hashem, that is a prayer in vain. But to be confident is appropriate. It is appropriate to be confident, and that's what Hillel was. Hillel was very trusting. He trusted Hashem. And we know that Hillel had a tremendous level of faith in Hashem and trusted that everything will be good. And that is, we know that from another halacha about Hillel. Hillel used to always buy stuff for Shabbos, and then he would be confident that he'll find something else that was accepted for Shabbos. So he would use what he bought, and I forget exactly the case, but it's brought in the beginning of Shulchan Aruch, where about Hillel, from the beginning of the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch at least, that Hillel used to had a certain way of remembering Shabbos. There are two ways of remembering Shabbos, and Beis Shammai's way was you buy something, and when you would buy something else that's better, then he would buy the better thing and then use the first thing for the weekday. Forget exactly the case, but we know Hillel had like a higher level of way of serving Hashem, and it all had to do with he trusted that he would have something, he would get something for Shabbos, and therefore it was like it changed the halacha of how he prepared for Shabbos. But I don't have, let me see, maybe I do have the Shulchan Aruch here. Oh. Safaria right here. Halacha. Oh, okay, here it is. Beis Shammai says, Zocher es yom haShabbos l'kadsher, remember the day of Shabbos to make it holy. So Beis Shammai says that you should remember it from the Sunday, from the first day of the week. If you find something nice, set it aside for Shabbos. You should always think about Shabbos, because a whole week long he would eat for Shabbos. How would he eat to honor Shabbos? If he found something nice, he would buy it and say, this is for Shabbos. If he found something better, he would put that aside, and he would eat the first thing that he bought. So he was always thinking about Shabbos. So the better thing he would save for Shabbos. Hillel Hazaking had a different way of doing things. He would say, Baruch Hashem Yom Yom, and Hashem will provide me something nice for Shabbos. He had such trust in Hashem that he would, things that he bought, he said, I could have now because I'm going to find something better for Shabbos. So he had a tremendous level of trust. So it says that we don't follow Beis Hillel. And even Hillel agrees that you shouldn't follow him. Even Hillel is moida that it's better to follow Beis Shammai. But he had bitachon in Hashem that Hashem will for sure provide him something really nice. Yasmin Laila Shabbos Mana Yafa Mikol Hayom is going to give him something really nice, even better than all the days. So Hillel used to have this high level of trust in Hashem, and because of that, he followed a different rule with regard to Shabbos. But he agreed that the way the common person should do things is to follow Shammai in this scenario. And that's why it's brought in Shulchan Aruch that we're actually supposed to follow Shammai, that every time I go to the store on Sunday, you find something really nice, so buy it for Shabbos. You find something better, then you could eat the thing you bought on Sunday for the weekday.
Rabbi?
That's the that's the way Shammai worked. But anyway, Hillel had a high level of trust. Anyway, here the Gemara brings this concept of Hillel having this faith in Hashem, that it's a certain trust and faith and confidence, similar to what you see in like the Chayvas Halvavos, that the person should be convinced that Hashem is providing revealed good. It's not just whatever Hashem does is good, but we trust that because Hashem is going to give me good, it's going to be the good, the revealed good. If it's not the revealed good, then I'll deal with it then. But at least I'm confident that Hashem doesn't do anything bad. And why shouldn't it be revealed good? I trust that it's going to be revealed good. And therefore, you can't daven for something to change, but you can trust Hashem. And to be worried is wrong. And that's soon we're going to see in other Gemaras about worrying is sort of against Yiddishkeit. Yes, Moshe.
It seems like there's more emphasis with Shammai on Gashmiut and more Ruchniut with Hillel, and instead of Emunah. I don't think that, it doesn't seem that it's a matter of Emunah. It seems like Shammai was more, it was putting something aside for, for the week, and then giving predilection to something that's has more value to it. It seems like there's more emphasis. There's more essence with Gashmiut as opposed to Ruchniut with, Hillel,
Well, the only thing is Hillel agreed with Shammai that's what a common person should do. So they both seem to agree about that. But what you're saying that maybe Hillel had a certain higher level of spirituality, that's an interesting thought. With his trust, that's an interesting thing. Shammai was practical. Shammai, was, and Hillel agrees that's the way you should be, and that it's very high level to you find one beautiful fish and you say, you know what, I'm gonna eat this fish on Tuesday because I'm sure Hashem will provide me something better for Shabbos. That's a high level, it would be the Shammai way is the more practical way that listen, Hashem gave me this nice fish. I'm gonna put it. Let me have it for Shabbos. I'll save it now for Shabbos, and that would be the norm. That's a very nice thing. A big mitzvah. Zocher Siyam Shabbos Kadsha. You're remembering Shabbos even during the week. You're making Shabbos holy even during the weekdays. That's a high level. It's a normal, it's a good level, to do it. Hillel was like beyond, like above. So that's interesting thought that you say that Hillel maybe had a more spiritual element. You have to go through all the arguments between Shammai and Hillel really to work on that project, Moshe. If you wanna develop that into a Dvar Torah, you got to go through all the arguments of Hillel and Shammai, and so that'll be your next essay, maybe. Okay. So the Gemara now says, Amar Rava kol hecha de darshas lahai kra mereisha l'seifa midrash miseifa l'reisha midrash. However you darsh in this pasuk, it could be darshan, it could be expounded upon. I shouldn't say expounded upon. It could be translated either you could read it from the beginning to the end, or you could read it from the end to the beginning. What does that mean? Mereisha l'seifa midrash, from the beginning to the end, it could be explained, because mishmura ra la'ira, don't be afraid of bad tidings or hearing something bad. Matam, what is the reason? Nachon Levi, because, don't be afraid, because Nachon Levi, your confident heart, is batuach b'Hashem, trusts Hashem. And so the end of the pasuk is explaining the command of the first pasuk. Mishmur ra, don't be afraid from any bad things, because Nachon Levi batuach b'Hashem, because you should be confident in Hashem. Miseifa l'reisha midrash, or it could be explained from the end to the beginning. Nachon Levi batuach b'Hashem, a person should be confident in Hashem, his heart should be confident and trusting in Hashem, and therefore mishmura ra lo yira, a person should not be afraid from any negative negative happen, any negative tidings, any bad things that he hears, should not be afraid because he's confident in Hashem. So it's basically the pasuk is giving a reason why you should not be afraid. You should be trusting. You should trust in Hashem, and that was the story of Hillel. So again, even though you can't daven that because it's a little late to daven that this whatever they're screaming about should not be in your house. So you can't daven for that, but you could be confident that it's not happening. There is another explanation of this Gemara that the way Hillel taught his family is not to scream when something bad happens. That they should, in other words, it's not really going on the fact that it's a prayer in vain if you daven for something. It's more going on the fact that you're supposed to, when you hear bad news, you're supposed to trust Hashem that there's something good coming out of it, that there's something positive. And you're supposed to accept it b'simcha. You're supposed to accept the bad news. The same way that you're supposed to accept it with the kabule b'simcha, to accept it with joy. And therefore, because Hillel taught he followed that so much, and he taught his family that way, so he was confident that it's that this whatever screaming is happening in his house, not from his household, because there shouldn't be screaming. Screaming is what's wrong. The screaming doesn't make sense. You don't scream because you trust that whatever Hashem does is for the best. Okay, then the next Gemara mentions two stories of being afraid and how that's wrong. It's not acceptable in Torah. It's not acceptable in Yiddishkeit to be afraid. Only regarding forgetting your studies. That's something you could be afraid about. Hahu Talmida the Havakah Ozil Basrei the Rabbi Yishmael Rabbi Yossi. There was a student that was going after Rabbi Yishmael Rabbi Yossi. He was following his teacher. B'shuka de Tzion, he was following him in the shuk, in the marketplace of Tzion. Chazia de Kamafchet, so Rabbi Yishmael Rabbi Yossi saw that his student was nervous. Amar lei chatat, you are a sinner. Rabbi Yishmael told him, because it says, sinners were afraid in Zion. There's a verse in Isaiah, Yeshaya, that sinners were afraid in Zion. And so you're fulfilling this verse. We're right in the marketplace of Tzion, and you're afraid. Amar lei v'achsiv ashri adam v'achitamid. So the student said, "Oh, I thought it's always important, appropriate to be nervous, because there's a pasuk in Mishlei, in Proverbs. It says, praiseworthy is the person who's always afraid." So the Gemara, so Rabbi Yishmael answers, "Amar lei ahu b'divrei Torah." That concept of being afraid is talking about words of Torah, that you should always be nervous that you're going to forget Torah. Why? Because it'll cause you to want to do chazara, to review. So if you're afraid that you're going to forget studying, it's good. It's good to be afraid that you're going to forget Torah, because it'll cause you to want to study and review it. In this way, you won't forget it. Or the Meiri says it's a person who's giving halachic renderings. He should be afraid that he doesn't make a mistake in his teaching, in his law. He should be very nervous to make sure to think deep and make sure he covers all grounds. Make sure he checks out everything that he's going to give a halachic ruling on. He should make sure that he's looked into everything, every detail, and thought about it and connected it to the right area of Torah. So a person should be nervous that they shouldn't forget Torah. Therefore, they will review it, and the person should forget that he doesn't give a wrong halachic rendering. Therefore, he should study well before he gives the halachic rendering. So
there is
that
a similar,
yeah.
There is a similar pasuk from King David. Lo yira ra ki ata imadi.
Right. That we shouldn't be afraid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always use it. That's why I remember it.
Lo irara.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Now the next story, Yehuda bar Nasan Avashokal Vazel Basrei de Rav Hamnuna. Yehuda bar Nasan was going after Rav Hamnuna, and Itnach and Yehuda bar Nasan gave some type of a sigh, like worrisome sound. Amar le Yisurim, boy, oh Gavra Lasiya Nafshe. Rav Hamnuna said, "You're trying to bring punishment to yourself." As it says in the book of Job, Ki fachad pochadati v'yesoyeni v'asher yagorti yovelu. Pachad pochadati means I feared, and v'yesoyeni, and it came, that it might come. I feared that something will come, something bad will come, and what I feared, v'asher yagorti yovelu. And whatever I feared actually came to me. So you see that it's not a good thing to have fear, and it actually will happen. And what's interesting about this pasuk is that it sort of shows that because you, like in the way Rav Hamnun explains it, is that you want to bring punishment to yourself. In other words, you want to bring yourself suffering. You are being afraid. You're causing the suffering to come. This is also the concept of the Chivas Halvavas, that by thinking positive, you actually draw down positive results, and by thinking negative, this is the flip side of that, is by thinking negative, you're actually drawing down negative results because you're nervous this is going to happen, so you're actually causing it to happen. So yeah.
They always say, you don't fear anything, only Hashem. If you fear Hashem, nothing bad will happen to you.
Right.
So
that's it. So we got to live up to that. So Yehuda bar Nasan knew Mishlei. He says, what do you mean? What about this pasuk in Mishlei? In Proverbs, it says, praiseworthy is a person that's afraid, that's always afraid. Sounds like it's good to be nervous and worried. Maybe things, won't work out the way you want them. So the Rav Hamnuna says the same exact thing as Rabbi Yishmael Rabbi Yossi. He says, that's talking about Divrei Torah. That's not talking about general things. You're supposed to be sure that everything good is going to happen. In Torah, it's good to be nervous because this will cause you to study, to review your studies more. You'll study things well, and therefore it says praiseworthy is someone who's always afraid that he might forget his Torah learning. Okay, so that's the story with the prayer that with regard to trusting Hashem or praying that something that happened already shouldn't happen, which is called a prayer in vain. Okay, now comes the next Gemara. Is hanichnas lekrach, if a person enters a big city, and the Mishnah mentioned two opinions. Either you say two, you pray twice, or you pray 4 times. And the point is that there was some type of a prayer here that has to do with safety, a safety prayer. Now, one of the questions, of course, that this touches upon is, how does this differ from the Tfilas Haderech prayer? Because, first of all, it's actually very similar. And so the wording is even the same. And then, we did learn about the Tfilas Haderech prayer way back in the 4th parak. And here we're in the 9th parak, and we're talking about, it seems like this is maybe an alternative prayer or something else. Like, when do you say one, when do you say the other? So something that we're going to try to answer to when we as we learn this Gemara here. Tana Rabbanan, the rabbis learned in a brisa. Rabbis, B'chnisase, the rabbis taught in a brisa, B'chnisase, when a person enters this big city, Mahu Aimer, what should he say when he enters? So Yehiratzin Milfanecha Hashem Alekai, may it be your will, Hashem, my God, that you should allow me to enter the city in peace. So you pray to Hashem that your entrance will be done, that your entering the city will be okay. Nichnas, if he enters, Aimer, he says, after he enters and he made it peacefully into the city, I thank you, Hashem, my God. You allowed me to enter the city. You entered me into the city peacefully. And when he wants to leave the city, so that's the two prayers. He entered, prayed before he entered, prayed after. He said, thank Hashem for after he entered. Now, when he wants to leave the city, when he wants to leave, he says, may it be your will, Hashem, my God, and the God of my father, that you should take me out from this big city, l'shalom, peacefully. And so you pray that that your exit from the city should be in peace. Yatza, if he exits and he made it out peacefully, Aimer, he says, I thank you, Hashem, my God, that you took me out of this big city peacefully. The same way you took me out of the city in peace, so should you walk me peacefully, take me further peacefully, and support me, peacefully, support me peacefully, lead my steps peacefully, and save me, and save me from the palm of any enemy and ambusher along the way. So this is the prayer, very, very similar to Tefillas Haderech, because in Tefillas Haderech you have a lot of those words, those sentences. Now, the Gemara says, Rav Masna says that this law applies that you should daven when you enter, when you leave. That's talking about a city, big city, that's dangerous. She'ein danin, it's only bekrach, she'ein danin, that they don't judge v'hargen before they kill. In other words, they just, people there, they don't really punish them. They don't judge. I'm sorry. They punish people, but they don't judge them first. And they ain't done it. They don't judge them. They just punish people if they without like a judgment. And therefore, if you go to such a city, you got to be very careful that they don't make up a libel against you. And when you enter, when you leave, but a city that they judge before they act, before they do their executions, less than you don't have to worry that you don't have to say this prayer because they're not going to punish you unless they have a good case against you, and therefore you don't have to worry. You don't have to say the prayer. Ika da'ami, and some say Amar Rav Masa. Rav Masa said a little differently. Or the opposite, he says, even a krach that they judge before they kill, before they execute, even there, you should say this prayer. Zimnin delay misra melee. Sometimes it's not going to misra melee inish. Sometimes you won't find someone the yalef lezachusa that will prove merit for you, that will advocate for you, and therefore, if you're not going to have someone who will advocate for you, even in a case where they do things with justice, nevertheless, there might be some claim against you, and you won't be able to. No one will be able to speak positive about you because you're a stranger, and therefore you should say this prayer even in such a place. So this is the rules about this this prayer that it mentioned in the Mishnah. Nichnas l'krach, you're entering the city. So the commentaries discuss. So how is this different from the Tfilas Haderech? And what it seems to the way it seems to work is that they're really separate prayers, but sometimes you combine the two. What does that mean? Travel a long distance, that's Tfilas Haderech. You have to be established on the road, you're going a long distance, so that you're davening for the travel. Here, you're davening more for the danger of the place where you're entering or leaving. And this, it doesn't really have to be a long distance from your city. You could be next door. You might live in the little village and you're entering the big town. You would say this prayer, even though you don't say Tfilas Haderech, because the travel along the way is not dangerous. Well, you mean you live right in the outskirts? You're not going into an area where there are wild animals. You're in a village that's not far from the city, so you're not worried. You don't really have the purpose. The Tfilas Haderech doesn't necessarily apply. It's a short distance and it's not dangerous, but the danger is actually in the city. You go into this big city, and in this city, you could get into issues. There could be complications over there. The way they act, the way they do things, the way they ticket people and stop people and interrogate people and so on. And therefore, the tefillah that we're talking about here is this prayer that has to do with a dangerous city that you're entering or leaving. Now, what happens if you're leaving this city and you're going to be taking a long distance trip? So there you combine both prayers. You combine the prayer of leaving and the Tfilas Haderech, and you make one bracha. And you would actually conclude with Shemei Tfilah, like the Tfilas Haderech concludes. So that's the prayer at the end, the Moedim Moeda Ani Lefanecha, Shem Shetzasani L'Shalom, Kach Tolichein L'Shalom, Tzispochein L'Shalom. That's the prayer of the Tfilas Haderech that you would combine together with this prayer here. You would combine with that prayer that we learned in the fourth parak about Tfilas Haderech, and you would conclude with the bracha. At least that's one of the ways of understanding this. Okay.